Hi, I'm Mike Papantonio, and this is America's Lawyer. Employers are trapping their workers in a new form of indentured servitude, where it could cost you thousands of dollars to quit your job, and we'll explain what's happening. The U.S. military, well, they have a new tool to spy on anyone on the internet, and the chances of that being abused are really all the way through the roof. And President Biden, well, he says he isn't 100% sure whether he's going to run for president in 2024. And that's welcome news for a lot of Democrats. All that and more, it's coming up. Don't go anywhere. America's Lawyer starts right now. Companies in the United States are using contracts to trap workers in jobs that they hate, creating a new form of indentured servitude. I've got Farron Cousins from Ring of Fire with me to talk about that and a lot of other things. You know, this takes us back to the indentured servants that we're used to seeing in farming, immigrants that come in. They have the company store. You have to buy your food here, and then at the end of the month, they don't have any money. Or else in this situation, it's a little more sophisticated, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. What employers are doing right now in order to trap people in jobs that either aren't paying well or jobs that they just simply don't like is they're saying, okay, if you don't work here for X number of years and you leave, you have to repay us thousands and thousands of dollars for your so-called training to even work this job. And this is happening across industries. I mean, we're talking about pet groomers. There's actually a class action lawsuit about that.
Pet smart's being sued.
Yeah, truck drivers, nurses, all kinds of service workers in general.
Yeah.
It's terrifying for these people.
Well, they call it specialty training. They say,
Yeah.
you know, you can't go anywhere and not get this kind of training where it's not going to cost money. So if you're going to cost us money and you don't stay here more than 24 months, you owe us that money back. And it's a lot more beyond that. I mean, you've got where there's advances, pay advances, and they say, well, we're going to give you an advance paycheck, and that advance paycheck is something that they never catch up with. It's impossible to catch up with. So this value of training debt, that's generally what it's called. And right now, my take on it is the courts have enforced it, some of them. But I think you've also got something that you have, the unconscionability doctrine. A judge can look at it and say, yeah, I see this as a contract, but I think it's unconscionable. And they've got a lot of leeway to say, I'm not going to allow this. I think that's the way this is going to go, to tell you the truth.
Hopefully. And what's really ironic, disgustingly ironic about this program is that it's called the Training Repayment Agreement Provision, which the acronym of that is TRAP. It's literally called a trap that they're putting these workers into to force them to pay back this training. And a lot of times, this is something the courts have to take into consideration too. These employees are straight up told, we offer the free training. So they're told it is free. There is no cost for this. So that could come into play as well.
The idea is we're going to train you into something that it's going to have crossover value. You can go to this company, you can go to that company. But the word that they do use is come to work with us, and we're going to take you through a course that's going to give you value. Yeah. You're going to be able to use this everywhere. Well, it's just the opposite. I mean, there's no really truth to it. First of all, there's no special accreditation. They're not getting a special license. You're not a specialized licensed groomer at PetSmart, and that's going to translate to big money somewhere else. It's a scam. It's just another scam. And the courts have a way to do something about it. Like I say, if you have something that's so unconscionable that it looks like slave peonage, what they call peonage, then they can do something about it. Amazon has hired a former private prison executive to run their warehouse training. Wow, is that poetic or what? So they get this woman that is a specialist in how to control prisoners. How do you put them in there and control them day to day? In several different ways. Pick it up if you would.
Right. I mean, this is almost comically evil for Amazon to even do this, because we already know, obviously, there's horrendous conditions at Amazon warehouses, right? We've had people die. Their COVID protections were non-existent. The stories of people peeing in bottles because they're not allowed to take lunch breaks. whatever packages per minute they have to pack. So they're like, how can we make this more efficient? Well, what if we just ran it like a prison? Because that is what these workers are already used to. So we bring in this woman, Dana Howard, who used to be with the Corrections Corporation of America, which is one of the worst.
Biggest private prison industry. I mean, it's the biggest in that industry.
They are, and they actually had to change their name because they were doing so many bad things and had bad reputation. So they say, well, this woman was kind of overseeing a lot of these horrible things at CoreCivic. Let's bring her in so that she can show us how to treat our warehouses the same way.
Well, okay, so it's how do you control prisoners? I mean, how do you get them in line? How do you get them from point A to point B? I know all the secrets, and I'm going to do the same thing for Amazon. And so the other thing is her specialty was how do you prevent prisoners from stealing? Did you see that?
Yeah.
You know, like they have access to a lot of stuff and they can put it out on the black market by the way they send it out of the prison. And so her thing was, how do we prevent prisoners from stealing? And I'm sure that has some holdover to this new job too, don't you think?
Right, absolutely. Because obviously, if you're in an Amazon warehouse, there are all kinds of products, big and small, all up and down the shelves. So yeah, if you're a big company, you do not want people stealing from you. But you also need to understand the optics of running your warehouses like a prison.
I just wonder who's advising on this. I'm sure she's good at what she does, but it's just when you're under the kind of scrutiny that this company's under all the time. Every week there's a new awful story about Amazon. You go, what the hell? I mean, why don't you get somebody that hasn't come from the prison industry? The U.S. military recently purchased a massive new surveillance program that could give them access to everything that's online. Well, you know what? Let me tell you about when I saw this story. I have been doing some reading that it really is troubling to me. And it's troubling because the millennials don't seem to give a damn whether they're being monitored or not. I mean, if you take a division in age groups, baby boomers, yes, they don't like it. Older baby boomers, yes, they don't like it even more. Millennials, maybe Xers and millennials, they think about it differently. They think it's just a cost of doing business so they can have access to the stuff they want.
Right, a lot of them have the mentality, well, I'm not doing anything wrong, so what does it matter? Forget civil liberties, forget all of that. You can have my data, it doesn't matter, it's not important.
It's amazing,
and
man.
we should be terrified that the United States military has bought this program, Augury is what it's called, and they can use this, they can just pay, and the company will hand them over data, email activity, website activity, cookie data that is on their computers. It lets them know every single thing an individual has done. And Augury was basically started for corporations.
Yeah, have you ever even heard of Motherboard?
A little bit.
Okay,
a little bit.
I had not really heard. I knew that they had organizations, but Motherboard apparently is the king of this process. Scrape and sell, right?
Yeah, and so again, this was started for corporations so they can get your data and target you with ads and sell you stuff. And the military saw the application of that. They said, well, wait a minute. If you know what websites this person's going to, you know who they're emailing and what they're saying in the email, maybe we should have that. Maybe we need to know that, so we can track the hackers, they say. We got to make sure we're cutting down on cybercrime. So NCIS is actually the big military organization that is buying this left and right. And the scariest part...
With no warrants.
Exactly.
It's completely warrantless searches. Now, again, let me come back to the basic concept that just should startle everybody, including millennials if you're a millennial. And that is that they're willing to trade off this right to privacy because the internet has functions that they want.
Yeah.
In other words, I want this and I want it so bad, I'm willing to let you into every little secret of my life. My home, whatever, my job, whatever I do, you can have it, no problem, because I'm not worried about it. And then the second thing is they've always assumed, it's a generation that's come up and has always assumed that this just goes on. Yeah, when I go into that world, this is going to go on, so what do I have to complain about, right?
Well, and another scary part of this too is that this is the government's way of getting around the whole I need to have a warrant, which means I have to have probable cause.
Right.
Now it's the same data where 5 years ago you would have to have a warrant. But now they go to Augury and they say, hey, I got $1,000 here. Give me some data.
What are you an Xer?
No, I'm on the upper end of the millennials.
Okay. Did you have to take civics in school? Did they teach civics?
We
when
did
you
a
were
little bit.
Okay. Did they
Mostly economics.
did they teach history about what happens when this goes bad? I'm curious about it because when I was coming up, that was a big deal. You took civics and it was a big deal, and they talked about things like right to privacy. They talked about the Fourth Amendment. They talked about searches and seizures and warrantless searches. It was a big deal. Did they not do that when you were coming
No,
up?
really, they did not. You know, our history classes kind of ended right at the end of World War II. We dropped the bomb, we win, that's it. You're good to go graduate now. But I do want to point something else out here, because this is actually truly terrifying here, because we have
The whole story's terrifying.
well, yes.
But if you think it's particularly terrifying, that's terrifying to me.
You've got the CEO of the company, Rabbi Rob Thomas. He's the CEO that makes Augury.
Okay.
He also sits on the board of the Tor software project. And Tor is a online tool that allows you to basically not be tracked and not be searched.
Okay.
So this guy has created the disease while also selling the cure for it.
Oh my God.
Rabbi Rob Thomas is who it
Rabbi
is.
Rob Thomas. Okay. Well, anyway, this only gets worse before it gets better, because when you have a generation that doesn't care, I mean, if you say, I don't care, this is worth it to me. All this stuff I want, this is worth it to me. You know, you and I have been doing this together for 20 years. And the interesting thing is the age difference between me and you, the way we see it, the way I see it, the way you see it. So we most of the time merge on that. But I think about it when somebody sees a story like this, they go, well, I care. Well, and I'm a millennial. Well, that's not what the numbers say.
Yeah.
That's not what the statistics say.
Well, and that's not what the actions say either.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know, Facebook's selling your biometric data. You're still putting your pictures up there every single day.
Yeah, I mean, I'm drinking a milkshake, whatever it is. You're there showing them what your life is. It doesn't seem to bother anybody. A Republican senator recently blasted President Biden for being too woke. But do the voters feel the same way? Okay, you're going to have to answer the voters feel the same way. All I can look at is he's killing the Democrats coming up the midterms. Now, voters, maybe there's other polls that show it. But the good news to me in this story is woke is really on its way out. I mean, this whole culture, cancellation, that whole idea is really become so offensive to so many people that these, snowflake types that are still living in woke world, it's kind of disappearing on them little by little.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that people on the left are not doing what so many on the right want to accuse them of all the time.
Okay.
Like, Biden's a lot of things, but woke, I'm not seeing that coming out of this guy. He is not shoving anything down our throats the way that the Republicans would like it to be. So when
this story came from the Daily Caller, right?
Right.
Okay, and so their conclusion was that this isn't true, that he's not as woke, because that's not what I read.
They do think he is.
Okay.
But I'm telling you, based on what I see, and based on what I see online, because I spend a lot of time on social media, and you don't see it to the degree that you did a couple years ago, right? And
do you think it's disappearing? I mean, do you think that you're reading people are so frigging tired of it? You got Bill Maher attacking you, you got late night comedy attacking, to where this kind of snowflake image of wokeness, I mean, they're kind of perceived as, childlike, spoiled brats that have no ability to think critically. That if they don't agree with it, we're going to tear the statue down. If I don't agree with the person that's coming to speak at my university, we're not going to let them come speak. You see, that is so dangerous, man. And people are seeing it.
Well, it is, but where they're seeing it come from is mostly on the right.
Okay.
We have Republican talking heads that have been melting down for weeks now because the Little Mermaid is going to be black. They have done segment after segment. They have millions of people up in arms because, oh my God, the Little Mermaid's black. Those are the things that Republicans are freaking out about, while people on the left are saying, it's a mermaid. You know, what it's not a real thing. Why are you freaking out?
So you don't really think there was any wokeness hysteria that took place over the last couple of years? I mean, I'm curious.
I mean, to a degree, people have been pushing what would, I guess, be called woke. But when you see the attacks from the other side, you know, when anything kind of bursts their bubble, it's that hypocrisy that really makes a lot of people say, well, wait a minute, you know, what actually is going on here? Is this being crammed down our throats, or is this a bunch of reactionaries trying to get clicks and views?
So you think the Democrats don't really lead that image? You think the Republicans have come in and created that image for the Democrats?
Yes, and now that is a problem with some voters. Obviously, you're not going to attract anybody from the far right, when they've created this image. But some people in the middle may think, oh my God, all I hear about is woke, even though it's all coming from the right.
So are we just seeing the headlines if you read the headlines, it's almost as if you have this class of people, call them the woke group, whatever the hell that is, and they believe that the American public is too simpleton to understand that there's different sides to every story. Therefore, they're so simpleton and so stupid that we as the woke group must tell them what they can think, what they can see, what statute should be up, what book they can read. Because that's really, if the Republicans have accomplished that, that's a pretty big deal.
Well, and I think they have. And I think the media has obviously helped push this a lot. And so it's not necessarily that it's a thing that's happening, but it's a thing they've created the image of happening. And even if they can't necessarily prove this, like in this statement, you know, from Senator Kennedy over in Louisiana, he doesn't lay out any actual thing.
But let me read it. Okay, this is from John Kennedy of Louisiana. You know, he's the guy that's always testifying, always has a pretty good shot on both sides. It says, well, it's not exactly a newsflash that President Biden has appointed thousands of uber wokers to his administration. Now, first of all, you don't believe that's true. I don't know if it's true or not.
I just don't.
Okay, wokers are easy to recognize. They hate George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, Dr. Zeus, and Mr. Potato. I mean, that is a pretty good line, though.
Well, the thing is, it's the Republicans who freaked out about Mr. Potato Head and Dr. Seuss. They wanted Dr. Seuss books off the shelves.
All right, well, let's work our way through this. It says, Kennedy told guest host Trace Gallagher, wokers respect no one's opinion but their own. Wokers think that America was wicked when it was founded, and it's more wicked today. They think that most Americans, ordinary Americans, are stupid, ignorant, and racist misogynists, and that now the wokers think that they are the only smart people left in the country. Okay, that is the sale.
Yeah.
That's the Republican sale.
Right.
Now, the reason your point is so important, and the reason your point is so precise and I think accurate, the more I'm listening to it, is this is the talking point.
It is.
And it's coming from the guy who usually does the talking for the right, and that's Kennedy.
Right. And so when he goes out there and he sells it to them saying they think you're an idiot, they think you can't understand this, they'll believe it, and they think these things are true, even though, again, he's pointing out things that there was a panic over on the right, not on the left over.
I saw some good news here. I did took a look at a couple of other articles. It says that when capitalism steps in and they try to take this thing called woke because they think they can sell more Coca-Cola, they think they can sell more product. When that starts happening, it's like, what is the one with Coca-Cola, We Are the World? That they came in with that deal and they tried to take the movement that we could all just get along, and they killed the movement. So the same thing's happening here with capitalism trying to adopt woke. We're a woke corporation. When that starts happening, woke starts disappearing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've seen it time and time again through history. Prosecutors at the DOJ are recommending no charges against Matt Gaetz. Now, I tell you this, I've never seen anybody, I've looked, and I don't think anybody has done as many articles on Matt Gaetz as you have. And you have concluded he's going to prison. I have concluded he's going to prison. I've concluded that they certainly have enough to indict. You and I have done the same. You know, we've landed kind of in the same way. But you have a Department of Justice that I want to talk about after you give your thoughts on this.
Yeah, when this story came out, it was kind of a shock. So I had to, look at first and say, okay, well, what right-wing rag is putting this? Okay, it's Washington Post. Uh-oh. and they talked to people in the DOJ and they said, listen, this is obviously not the final decision, but we're not recommending charges because we're having some credibility problems with two of the main witnesses.
Yeah,
one of them is Gaetz's ex-girlfriend. The other is Joel frickin' Greenberg, the very guy they've been working with for a year and a half.
Giving deals to.
Dropped 27 charges against him, and now suddenly, we can't believe him? That doesn't smell right.
How many times have you and I come on this program and we'll say that you will never fix corporate corruption because the DOJ has no courage.
Right.
The only thing that, now I could name, let me go through a couple of them. DOJ on HSBC. They were taking money, HSBC and other banks were washing money for terrorists, which ended up killing soldiers. We could trace it right to, we're handling the case.
Yeah.
Nobody prosecuted. Matter of fact, this was during Eric Holder.
Yeah.
Eric Holder had them dead to rights. They actually signed a document, 16-page document, said, yes, we washed money. Yes, it was for terrorists. Yes, we knew it was going to kill Americans. And nobody prosecuted. How about the opioids?
Yeah.
They had them dead to rights in Colorado. Yes, we knew that the company was they had a plan. They understood that they were telling a lie to the whole public, that this was absolutely a product that was going to cause abusers to die. And so they had them dead to rights. They had the documents where they knew it.
Yeah.
They absolutely knew it. Eric Holder, again, Loretta Lynch also said, we're not going to prosecute.
Yeah.
The Epstein case. How long did the Epstein case go on that they knew the guy was a perv? They knew that he was involved in trafficking young girls. They had all the information and they do nothing about it. Our DOJ, PFAS, in our water, killing people slowly with cancer. I know they have the information because we sent it to them. They have all the information that shows how bad this stuff is. No conduct. Nobody prosecuted. Nobody even investigated. How about Factor VIII? This is where hemophiliac children were taking a clotting factor. The company understood that it had AIDS contamination in it. We got it off the market in the U.S. You know what they did with it? Shipped it all over the world. Shipped it to South America, shipped it to Asia. You know how many prosecutions there were? 0.
And honestly, it looks like we're seeing the same thing here because, listen, I don't doubt this report. I don't doubt that this is what these prosecutors at the DOJ are saying because they're afraid. Yeah. It's not because they suddenly think Joel Greenberg is not giving them accurate information. They specifically said, we just don't think we could get a jury to convict.
You would have to be a moron as a prosecutor.
Right.
You would have to be an absolute moron not to say, well, let's take a chance. This flies in the face of every logical analysis I can give you from a legal standpoint.
I have seen high school mock trial teams that would be able to try this case and get a 20-year conviction out of this guy.
You understand? DOJ, these are career prosecutors. These are, if it's not low-hanging fruit, right. If it's not a softball in somebody's hands that they can knock out of the park, they're not going to do anything because they're getting paid anyway. It doesn't make any difference.
Listen, I've obviously, if you said we've worked together almost 20 years now, I have seen you work on cases for months, and when it comes to trial, you've said, I don't know that we can do it. But guess what? I'm still going to do it. Yeah. And most of the time you do pull it out. But I've seen other lawyers do the same thing. Like, wow, I don't know that we can win this. Yeah. But you're not doing what the DOJ says and, okay, well, just throw it away then. Throw away all the hard work. No, you still go and you try and you do prevail.
I would recommend that anybody watching this program go back and look at every one of the stories you did on this. They're all precise. There's no guesswork. You based your analysis on stuff that was in front of the DOJ.
Yep.
I would ask everybody go back and look at that and understand, maybe you can understand what happened here, because I can't. The CIA has launched a new podcast to help spread propaganda about their agency. This is the CIA's effort to whitewash the idea that, yeah, we did kill Allende. Yeah, we did kill Diem. We've carried out all these assassinations. We've put coups in place all over the world. And oh, by the way, now we're messing with American politics. Now that one gets real close to home. Whether you know what I think Trump was, honest to God, he is just a horrible, horrible person and politician. And I have worked everything I can do to defeat him in that effort. But I've also been conscious when the CIA gets involved in presidential politics in the United States, that's very dangerous. And like him or hate him, I swear to you, they're involved. They've been involved in this presidential process for several years now.
Yeah, and this new move, I mean, starting a podcast, this is absolute insanity because it is, we know from the first episode that's come out, it's pure propaganda. They want to go out there and, dispel some of the myths about the agency by having members of the agency tell us how great they are. They're going to go out there, because they already have, they're going to tell us, oh, we're killing these people in drone strikes, but they're not going to mention, oh, by the way, we also just murdered 100, 200, 500 civilians with the same drone strike because, oops, we missed the first time, which actually is what Kevin Gastala pointed out from, because he's done such a good job of covering things like this. But this is 100% propaganda from the United States government to whitewash a horrible agency with a despicable history.
Whitewash 75 years of spook conduct that when you start taking a look at it, it should scare the hell out of every American citizen, because it's not just about taking care of, it's not just about taking care of us. In a lot of ways, there's hustling us involved. There's covering up that's involved. And I got to tell you something. The CIA has had they've had a free ride for too long. Every now and then a politician will come along, like Frank Church, and say, I want you to open your books a little bit. We need to start seeing what you've been up to. And I think we're almost approaching that time right now.
When a lot of people need to understand too, it's not just what the CIA has done overseas, it's what they've done here on American soil for 75 years. I mean, hell, they had files on Elvis. They thought, oh, well, his gyrations, literally one of their files said, well, his gyrations are corrupting a nation.
Yeah.
So
or Martin Luther King,
exactly.
Or any civil rights movement, or any cult.
Activists.
Oh God, talking about targeting environment. Well, now, again, I don't take a stand on this pro-abortion, or this is not a stand. But now you've got them going after pro-lifers in a way that I understand. There's got to be some way to contain really crazy conduct, but it's got to be on both sides. You don't just say, well, we're going to target these folks because it's politically correct for us to target these folks. I don't know, man. I just think that once the public starts really understanding, Howard Zinn was, of course, the greatest writer, Chalmers Johnson, Matthew Mintz, those folks were great writers, and they told the story about what was going on with organizations. I don't know who's writing about it anymore. Maybe Matt Taibbi. Who would you say is up there really following this kind of thing? I'd say Matt Taibbi for sure.
I think definitely Kevin Gastala, who is mentioned in this article. In fact, we've had him on Ring of Fire multiple times.
Yeah, he's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant.
And he's very young and very smart, and so he's been doing a heck of a lot of good stuff on this too.
Yeah, well, we need them in there because there are no more Howard Zinns. There are no more Chalmers Johnsons or Matthew Mintz or these people. And if nobody's looking at them, that's real dangerous. Biden said in a recent interview that he isn't 100% sure he's going to run for a second term. Wow. Okay, so this ought to be a celebration by all Democrats moving into the midterms. He's DOA. I don't even think he's in charge of his government at this point. I think Susan Rice is running things, if you want to know the truth. But anyway.
Well, for Biden to actually say this in this recent 60 Minutes interview, to me, that's kind of a big deal. He could have easily just said, well, yeah, why wouldn't I seek a second term? That's ridiculous. But he said, I've always said it's my intention, but only an intention. We'll get down to it later on. And I do think he is leaving himself that window instead of boxing himself in. Remember when he first started running, he said, I'm only doing one term.
Yeah, he definitely said that. He definitely said that.
And he got in trouble for saying
anytime we say this on this program, they say that's nonsense. He didn't. Yes, he did say that.
He walked it back because they got mad.
But he said, I'm going to do one term and then I'm gone. So everybody said, okay, well, anything to get rid of Trump, that's great. But you have to understand, he's not even in charge of government. I mean, take a deep dive on this. Maybe you and I ought to do a segment on this. Take a look at how many decisions Susan Rice is making right now. I mean, big decisions. Now, Susan Rice, if you remember, was the person at the heart of Iraq. You know, she was part of the big lie. Yeah. The big lie about weapons of mass destruction. We knew that was a lie. She promoted it. She promoted it with the New York Times. She was the voice. And then she got Powell involved and tried to convince the American public that this is real, that there's weapons of mass destruction. Susan Rice, you can hang all of that around her neck. That's the person making decisions, I believe, for Biden right now.
Well, and so we have to ask the question, too, if Biden's not going to run, then who's it going to be? Gavin Newsom is chomping at the bit to throw his hat in to run for president. He's challenging Ron DeSantis to debates already.
I know.
And that would be a hell of a fight.
I think it's going to be DeSantis versus Newsom. And I think that and we've talked about this before. Yeah. DeSantis is going to sweep Middle America. He's going to sweep the South, and you're going to have that division of East Coast, West Coast, California, New York, Eastern Seaboard. And I just don't think Newsom can win. I think there's a hink about California that has developed, right or wrong. It's this attitude that people, I mean, my God, people trying to move from California to Montana or Colorado, you ought to hear what the locals out there think about California. And so I think Newsom's got he's a good politician. I think he's a good candidate. But I think to beat DeSantis, it's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah, I mean, a race between those two would probably end up coming down to Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin.
That's exactly right.
And
that's exactly right.
They don't have a good history going for Democrats recently.
Well, they don't like California. I mean, that's not just me talking. It's just this pervasive idea about California. And it's not my idea. There's tons of people who've written about it. And so you've got Newsom versus DeSantis. And I think DeSantis, unless he really screws up, takes that.
We'll see what happens after Ian here.
Yeah, exactly.
That's going to be a big test for him.
Yeah, exactly. Farron, thanks for joining me, okay?
Thank you.
That's all for this week, but all of these segments are going to be available this coming week right here on this channel, and you can follow us on Twitter at America's Lawyer. I'm Mike Papantonio, and this has been America's Lawyer, where we tell you the stories that corporate media won't tell you because their advertisers won't let them know. Their political connections just don't allow for it. We'll see you next time.